Okay.
Vermeer, hold on for a second, please.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. Monday, November 24th, a little after 6 p.m. I am we're open for questions, comments. See if you guys have any thoughts from the weekend. We spent most of the weekend talking about Matthew 13 chapter. Uh, so any thoughts or questions on anything? Okay.
Ron,
Yes, sir.
I listened at um at both lessons,
Okay.
and needless to say, I gleaned quite a bit from it. And I think it was well, both of them were actually excellent messages or excellent lessons. And I do believe that they were quite beneficial to all the recipients. And having listened to them, it was ironic in that with the towards the ending yesterday, I think when Kathy talked about the idea of the concept of balance, it played right into something that I had been shown in
Okay.
reference to the whole idea of balance itself and how balance comes about. As also something came to me in regards to who or what the harvest is and the relationship between Elohim and humans. So I needless to say, um, it triggered quite a bit in me, and it connected to some things that I had already been shown. So in regards to that, if I would rather wait to see if there are any questions or comments based upon what has been discussed in the last couple of days before I make any statements about what I see or have seen, have been seen. So I reiterate what Ron asked: are there any questions or comments?
Okay.
Let me say this one to the people who are on. One of the reasons I was not on is because I had gone to the doctor and I was hospitalized, but now I'm fine. And I wanted to let you know that. So because I had been off not only this past weekend, but previous weekend as well. Uh, when I think about when I looked at the idea of balance, I had already been shown something in regards to that. How is it that that balance comes about? What must take place in order for us to have the experience of balance? I think if we were to look at what caused us to be out of balance, it will help us to see more clearly what balance looks like. Um, Beginning with what happened recently. In our recent history, we've seen that the efforts by the system has been directed toward the separation of the family ties between male and female in the African community in particular. And the reason it is directed at the African community is because there is a recognition of the power of unity in the African community. Because those who project themselves as being superior recognize that in order for them to be able to convince others that they are superior, they have to dehumanize and minimize the essence of the African. They recognize very clearly that the African is indeed divine. And because of that, they meaning Europeans, have put great effort into making mockery of the essence of the African in the earth. And in doing so, have created an imbalance, because the only way that uncivilized people can dominate the world, there has to be an imbalance in the world. Balance does not allow for uncivilized minds to control, manipulate humans in this earth. That is not something that happens because we were brought into this earth as Africans for the express purpose of making sure that righteousness is the dominating force in the earth. The primary attitude and the primary emotional state is that of balance and loving kindness. So, in recent history, what we have seen is that the school system in this country has always been controlled by the dominant forces of inhumane mindsets. And that dominance played a major role in making a decision to remove from the high school settings vocational training. And the reason it was done is because when vocational training was a primary component of public education, African men in particular were able to engage in courses. Could you mute your phone, please? Hello? Robert, can you mute your phone? Hello? Can you mute your phone, please? The primary force in our lives. I lost my train of thought. Help me regain it, someone.
You were talking.
Oh, go ahead, Vermel.
You were talking about why they removed vocational
Okay.
studies.
Thank you. The reason that vocational education was removed from the high school settings is because African men were able to graduate from high school and have employment immediately. And that put them in a space where they were able to rear a family and take care of them. And by removing those vocational classes like plumbing, being an electrician, or a brick mason, carpenter, etc., this actually removed opportunities for those who did not go to college or go to a tech school. It removed the opportunity for them to be productive in the society, and this was done on purpose. And when that was done, something else was being done at the same time, and that was the removal of manufacturing plants from the communities of Africans, so that the job market would be dried up for those of us who were seeking to care for our families. But there were multiple things that were being done simultaneously and some in sequence. And the sequence to that was the introduction of crack cocaine into the African community. And if you sold crack cocaine, you were imprisoned. If you did crack, you were arrested. So regardless what your interaction was with crack cocaine, you were going to jail. As a result of that, especially during the 1994 crime bill, the focus was on making sure that African males were arrested in their teens so that they would be charged with a felony. And having been charged with a felony, they were not permitted to receive grants or loans to go to college or to further their education, be it college, a liberal arts college, or a technical school. But not only that, they compounded that with the law that says that if you have a felony, you cannot live in housing projects. And they made every effort to make sure that Africans' primary residents were housing projects. And we can talk about the project on another day because that meant something to the name project. And these young men, when they were released from prison, they were not able to get a loan to go to school. Neither were they able to get a job because they were felons. And in addition to that, they were not able to take care of any children they may have had prior to their going to prison, or even afterwards. They could not even think about rearing a family because they did not have access to employment. While at the same time, African females were not included in this plan. And as a result of that, African females were permitted to receive scholarships, receive loans and grants from the government to further their education. This was not done because African women were more intelligent or African males did not have any desire to move beyond where they were. It was done in order to create a separation between the African male and female. And this separation between the African male and female over the years begun to be expressed in a chasm being created between the two of them. And then on top of that, the uncivilized minds open corporate positions for African females. And they only let a handful in order to be able to make a statement that equality, things that changed rather racially in the country. And we can look at the people of color or African people who were in these positions. These females were put in these positions or allowed to enter this gate that led to those positions, not because they cared about the African female more than the male. It was because they wanted to increase the divisiveness between the African male and female. And it was quite successful to the extent that the media joined in with the sociologists, the psychologists, and the politicians to further emphasize this chasm between the African male and female by saying that Black men don't take care of their children. Black men are always up for non-support, when in reality there are more white men who are delinquent in child support than there are African men. But that's a story again for another day. This is about us. And this resulted in competitiveness. In the beginning, there was no competitiveness between the African male and female. There was unicity. And the understanding of that unicity was very clear in the minds of the African. This competitiveness morphed into something that was fostered by movies as well as by the news media. And that was that the angry Black woman did not need a man in her life because she, as a woman, has been carrying the load all by herself anyway. And the Black male had nothing to bring to the table other than trouble for her because he was a convicted felon. And there are African women who bought into that. And their mindset begun to morph into something even more deadly. And that was, if you don't have something to bring to the table, meaning if you don't have a job equal to mine or a job that is similar to mine, with the income similar to mine, then you have nothing to offer me. So what happened is relationships with the Africans was predicated on money. How much one made, how much one's salary was. While at the same time, this was not an issue with white people because white women were encouraged to stay in the home and not work outside of the home. And this whole thing of feminism that got them into workplace is also a story for another day. It is amazing how that worked out. But anyway, the African male and female was at each other's throat in that regard, competed against each other, and with the female being encouraged to look upon the African male with disdain because he was not able to further better himself, as we put it, or he didn't have any ambition when that was not the truth. The ambition was there, but the means to fulfill that ambition was not available to him. So this in itself created the competitiveness and the divisiveness between the African male and female, also created the imbalance in society itself. And this imbalance was created on purpose. Don't you think for a moment that the barbaric mindset of the European did not understand that the unicity, the oneness, the unity between the African male and female would change the course of the whole society, would change the course of the world, period. And that is the reason this was fostered. So when we talk about bringing balance to the earth, when we talk about balance for humanity, there will never be balance for humanity. There will never be balance in the earth until we recognize that the wholeness of Elohim cannot be experienced until there is balance between the African male and female, meaning that there must be balance between the African femininity and African masculinity in order for Elohim to be whole. And it is the wholeness of Elohim that brings balance into the earth. So if we are indeed searching for balance in the earth, and we are, then we have to, we cannot overlook the reality of what has been created in our midst. We have to see it for what it is and make a conscious decision that we are no longer going to allow it to persist in our communities, meaning that we are not going to base our relationships, our interpersonal relationships, on who makes the most money or how much money someone makes or the material ambition of someone. But our relationships is based on mutual respect and understanding, realizing that the system is designed to dehumanize the African male or to emasculate the African male and remove that African male from the position, the place, the station, the status of African masculinity, meaning that African masculinity is predicated on making sure that the feminine aspects of Africanness remains functional, remains alive, continues to exist. And the way that happens is because masculinity is a provider and a protector. But when you remove the provision for providing, you also emasculate the male to a state where it does not see itself able to protect either. So that in itself creates friction. So when we talk about this idea of balance, we cannot escape the reality of the way that imbalance has crept into our existence. Neither can we look away from the reality of what must be done in order for us to bring the balance between the femininity and masculinity of the African, so that we can truly experience the fullness of Elohim. We cannot dispel the reality of how things were put into place in order to create this imbalance. Because if the structure of stability is rendered imbalanced or is rendered impotent, then anyone can come in and fill that void. And the void that was created was filled by the barbaric mindset. And to this day, it is still being filled by that barbaric mindset. Therefore, we as Elohim must embrace the reality of what was so that we can become what is. And that is the balance for humanity, because we have made a conscious decision to eradicate all of those material things that has created the separateness between masculinity and femininity of the children of a Kabbalah. And in doing that, we will begin to experience a true nature, a true essence of what it means for humanity to be balanced, because we cannot be the Lord of the harvest, neither can we reap a harvest if we are not in a state of balance. Because the harvest is not the African at all. The harvest that is seeking to be reaped, to be gathered, that harvest is the European mindset. That is the harvest. The tare is the mindset of the African, the European, or whomever else who has chosen to hold on to Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or that mindset of the European. That is the tare. The harvest is the European. What do I mean by that? The harvest is the European because we are, as Africans, are Elohim. And by virtue of us being Elohim, we have an obligation to bring that mindset of the European to a state where it desires to embrace the tenements of Ma'at. The principles of Ma'at are the only force in this earth that has the power, that has the energy, that has the know-how to bring balance to humanity. So it is not that we, being Elohim, are in a state where we bring our Europeans or to a state of being Elohim, because that is an impossibility. It is not improbable. It is impossible. And it was never meant from the beginning. You cannot be Elohim without being melanated. Elohim is not here to create Elohims. Elohim is here to bring balance to humanity. And that barbaric mindset of the European is to be brought to a state where it embraces the reality of what Ma'at is, the idea of loving kindness, the idea of recognizing that all humans must be treated the same, to recognize that greed is destructive as opposed to being productive. And we have a tendency to think that everyone is supposed to be like us, but that was never meant from the beginning. Everyone cannot be like us. We are who we are, and it does not minimize the status or the state of anyone. The only one who can minimize your state or status is you, by your mindset. It's simply the responsibility of Elohim to bring into existence, to bring to a space where it is available to those who have a European mindset to embrace the reality of Ma'at, which means that they will be following the spiritual essence of Elohim. The scripture says that that Elohim is spirit, and they that worship Elohim must worship Elohim in spirit and in truth. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that you fall on your knees and you worship somebody. That is erroneous. That is something that was taught by Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. That has never been truth from the beginning. The truth of worship is a submission to the principles of Ma'at. It is a submission to the reality of loving kindness. It has nothing to do with superiority or inferiority. It has everything to do with of humanity having a mindset of righteousness. It is no different than a student and a teacher. The teacher is not superior to the student, neither is the student superior to the teacher. This teacher is a servant to the student. Elohim is a servant to those who have a mindset that is devoid of righteousness and peace and harmony. And that servitude of Elohim is to bring that mindset to a place where it embraces this harmony and embraces Mayat. The scripture that talks about the idea of it is the will of Elohim that all would be saved and none be lost. That is simply saying that our desire as Elohim is that all will embrace the reality of righteousness, loving kindness, the principles of Mayat. It is our desire that happens. It doesn't say that it's going to happen, because there will be people who look just like us who will maintain that European mindset without regard to what is in the macro or what we are teaching to them. The same goes with those with the European mindset. There are those who will maintain that mindset and continue to live in that state of barbaricness as those who look like us have or have embraced as well. Yet there will be also those who seek to live under the tenements of the reality of what Mayat means, and that is loving kindness, peace, and harmony, and justice. So if we can keep in mind that the Lord of the harvest is Elohim, and the harvest is those who have at one time been unripened and now have been ripened to the state of being willing to not only accept and embrace, but to live up to what it means to live according to the principles of Mayat. And it can only happen if it resonates with those who have this mindset of barbaricness, of a barbaric. That mindset can only be dispensed with when the principles of Mayat are embraced. Are there any questions or comments? May I ask this question then? Is this clear with you guys? If it is not clear, I would certainly like to know which portion is not clear.
It's clear, at least to me.
Clear to me also, Pastor.
Clear to me also.
Okay. Question? Audrey?
I have a question.
Sure.
You were saying that the African American male was the provider and protector. Was that true in the beginning? I mean, weren't they just equal?
Equality.
What changed?
Well, equality is not based upon everyone doing the same thing. Someone has to be a provider, protector, meaning that the masculinity of Elohim, the purpose is to make sure that the femininity continues to exist. And that is manifested in the physical by provision and protection. When we look at it from a spiritual perspective, the masculinity is to make sure that the femininity continues to exist, because without the femininity, there is no birth of enlightenment or anything else. So when I say protection and provision, I'm not talking about a separation between the two as much as I'm talking about a responsibility of the two. And so this idea of balance and equality is not based upon them doing the same thing, but it's based upon them working together to make sure that life itself is lived and experienced in the way that it was intended from the beginning. The seed of masculinity feeds into the womb of femininity, in order to for the femininity to be able to birth something. However, when we looked at that video some time ago, and we talked about the reality of masculinity being the entity that protects and makes sure that the feminine is able to survive, is able to persist in its responsibilities. Well, what we have seen is that responsibility of femininity has been buried beneath all of the principles that have been brought into existence by European mindset, and that is that femininity is secondary to masculinity, and masculinity is dominant. Well, neither one of them is dominant, but both of them have responsibilities, and their responsibilities are simply different, but they complement each other. Does that make sense?
Okay, I understand that. I'm still wondering where the provider part comes in, because
The manifestation of
When you-
provision is inherent in being hunter gatherers. In the beginning, we were hunter gatherers, and the bulk of the hunter gatherers were men, and they made sure that they hunted and they brought provisions into the village. The females in the village were actually the minds of the village in terms of the direction and guidance of the village itself. And as Kwame Nkrumah said once, that if you want to know the mindset of a village, look at its women. Why? Because femininity not only does it birth, but is also the primary teacher, the first teacher. It is also the source of wisdom and cohesiveness in that community. So that cohesiveness and the teaching and the birthing are no less than the hunter-gatherer who makes provisions for life to continue itself. It's simply that they have different roles that they play, but both of them are equal, and neither one of them can continue to live without the other. And we see that right now. We are not living, we are existing. We as Africans are existing. We're not living. And the reason I say that we're existing is because we are not on the same page. And I'm not talking about every African male or female or all African masculinity or femininity is going to be on the same page. But I am saying there has to be African masculinity and femininity on the same page in order for existence to continue in the way that the Creator intended from the beginning. Is that, can you see that?
Sorry, I had a little interruption, but yeah, I can see it, but I still have questions. I just have to
Okay, that's cool.
formulate the questions in my mind.
Okay, when you do, please bring them, because
Okay.
it is extremely imperative
Yeah.
that we get an understanding of the necessity and the balance being between masculinity and femininity before we can expect to see the manifestation of any real balance in humanity. And we have to come to grips with the true essence of what it means to be Elohim. If you look at James as a purely masculine being, it is impossible for James to be Elohim without the essence of Anadria, or the essence of femininity itself. And I know I'm stating this in human terms. However, I do feel that when we state things in human terms, sometimes it helps us to get a clearer picture of what it looks like spiritually.
Well,
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking back to the Proverbs 31 woman who basically did everything. She provided for herself. There was no
And
mention of like a husband or whatever. Um,
the, it is impossible. And I know exactly what you're talking about in that Proverbs 31 woman. I see exactly what you're talking about. However, I also understand that the translations that were given to us were not necessarily translations that came out of Kemet. Our Kemetic understandings do not come to us from the Bible. Our Kemetic understanding comes from us from the Akasic consciousness. And that is the reason we're able to look at the Bible and see what's there. Because, quite frankly, it is not virtually, it is totally impossible for femininity to exist in the earth without masculinity. And it is impossible for masculinity to exist in the earth without femininity because it takes both of them a type,
yeah.
and hear me well when I say this, a type of hermaphrodite experience in order for Elohim to be whole. And the wholeness of Elohim is necessary for balance to go forth. Without the wholeness of Elohim, there is no civilization brought to the earth at all. And that wholeness is masculine and feminine. And I'm not talking about in terms of physicality, by the way.
Right. I understand the need for the balance of the two, but I'm just wondering if the protector provider thing has been overemphasized by religion or
Oh, it has been overemphasized by religion. By all means, it has. Because when we look at it from a religious perspective, the only thing we see is that if the male is the breadwinner, the male is the protector of the house, the male is the voice in the house, the male is the manager of the house, the male is this, the male is that. That is overemphasis. However, when I look at provision, I'm not just looking at bread as much as I am looking at cohesion between the two. If you are in the household and you're feminine, and there is no cohesion between the two of us, and everything that you talk with the children about, and I countermand that, then I'm not providing an environment of continuity for those children to develop. So protection is more than protection for something violent happening to you. Protection also speaks to the idea of there being continuity to the manner in which we seek to rear our children or to bring a sense of unicity into the household itself. Does that make sense, Audrey? So I'm not talking about having a sword standing outside the door to protect anybody.
okay, I'm just still processing.
Okay.
Uh,
If anyone can help me with that, please do, venture to do so. I'm very much open to that.
Pastor, I wanna ask a question along the lines and see if I'm understanding as well, because I think one of the things that I'm thinking as I'm listening to the dialogue between you and Audrey is that and it helped me to see if I'm saying it correctly. When the fluidity of the male and the female living in a place of harmony and balance was observed by the European, just like everything else that they saw that we were doing that they did not understand, they put their interpretation to it. And what evolved over time was something that was delineated as your role. And so in the European culture and the way we look at things and the way we even began to rear our own families, those of us that are here in America, we began to look at what your role is as wife, what your role is as husband, what your role is even as child. and begin to assign roles to that. But that was not the way it was in the beginning. Things flowed in a harmonious way in that, because even if he, and I'm speaking in generalities now, even if that male was bringing the sustenance back for the village, the female provided protection to him too by covering him, so to speak. And I think we've talked about this before, and I cannot remember exactly how it was said when we discussed it before. But I think a misunderstanding and a misinterpretation came about, and that what was observed as harmony in the mind of the European was construed to be assignment of a particular role, and you cannot deviate from that role now. And that's what I feel like we have spent a lifetime of those of us who are here in America of fighting against roles that have been assigned to us, and just learning to be who we are. And if I'm saying it the right way, or correct me if I'm saying it incorrectly, but could that be part of the struggle of being able to even just say that male is providing protection? Because it's been so ingrained in us to think of that's the role of the male. When if I have no male, am I unprotected? And all of these, you have all of these ways of looking at things, because we've looked at it through the eye of the European as opposed to the way it was from the beginning.
First of all, thank you. First of all, when if you notice, when I was talking, I did everything I could to avoid using the word role, because role in itself is divisive. It separates you. Role puts you in a concrete place. It puts you in a box. It does not allow for fluidity. Role says that this is what you're supposed to do, and that's it. But the fluidity of the existence of masculinity and femininity does not put you in a role. When I talk about masculinity and femininity, and I'm talking about the protection of masculinity, I'm not talking about with a sword. I'm talking about protection by virtue of honoring the wisdom that which is feminine, so that all can benefit from it, with the understanding that just as much as I am able to be feminine as I am now, by virtue of birthing what I have been impregnated with through the discussion we're having, you are, and Audrey is able to be a protector to what I am saying, what I'm birthing, as from a masculine perspective. And that protection is that it resonates with me. I understand what you were saying. And being able to cultivate it, not just for Audrey, not just for Kathy, but for humanity itself. So this idea of role does not grant you the privilege to be able to be fluid enough in order for us to ebb and flow with masculinity and femininity. Does that make sense so far? To the both of you, especially Kathy and Audrey?
Yeah.
It does, yes.
So when I say that, and that's why I keep emphasizing, I'm not talking about a physical protection, because when we are Elohim, we don't need physical protection at all. When we are Elohim, the protection that we're talking about is the cultivation of the harvest, the cultivation of the truth, and the birthing of the truth. I am just as much as a birther as you are, even though society doesn't see it that way, because you have a physical womb, and I have within me the seed that fertilizes that's implanted in that womb, not realizing in societal ways that both of us are masculine and feminine at the same time. And that is the reason that is manifested by the testosterone and the estrogen that all of us have. Every one of us have those substances within us. So I'm not at all talking about protection in a physical sense. I'm really not.
I think we've talked about this in so many ways without realizing it. For example, when you go to uh, the 12th chapter of Genesis, and it talks about leave your father's house and I'll make you a nation. We talk about the leave your father's country, and the country being that place with walls, that country being the place with boundaries and separations, and so when you become a nation, you become a community, you become one. You become one with everybody, and there are no roles. Uh, you talked about when your neighbor, when you were a kid, your neighbor got sick, and y'all did her laundry. Y'all cooked for her. Whatever was needed, it was done, and nobody thought about it. That's what a household looks like. The closer you grow and the more harmonious it is, you become one, and there are no lines. Uh, it may my house may look different than your house as far as what is takes place, but as long as there's balance, as long as there's harmony, then it is equal. It is the same thing, because whatever it takes for one may be something a little slightly different for the other, but as long as there's harmony, that is the balance.
And see, there's a difference between balance and equality. I'm not talking about equal.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about balance.
I hope I wasn't either. I wasn't.
You weren't. You weren't.
Right.
I just wanted to reiterate that.
When we talked about the helpmeet a long time ago, too,
Yes.
we talked about how the helpmeet is protection for the male.
And the example that Ron gave, James and Zip, we ironed the neighbor's clothes. That we washed. That, according to society, that assignment is to a female. But we had no problems doing that because it was necessary. Does that make sense? So when we talk about this, we're talking about it from a purely spiritual perspective. Because again, let me say this again: protection does not involve physical protection. And we have been so indoctrinated with the concept of protection being someone standing guard over you, or you being vigilant about making sure that no one breaks into your house and harms your family. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to make it clear because we've moved so far beyond that.
Yes, that's not in my mind at all.
Okay.
It isn't. This whole concept of protection, masculinity and femininity, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything that happens in this material world. And I'm in a space right now where I struggle to get things out, because what comes to me is speech that is purely spiritual in nature. And to speak about it purely spiritual in nature without human examples, sometimes it does not find the space of within someone where it resonates. And that is why I try my best sometimes to use examples that we are familiar with. Just like when we talk about the harvest, it was talking about planting and reaping of seeds. But it didn't mean that, even though they were used as an example in listening at what was discussed. When you talked about the seed being in a dark place in the ground, well, the seed being in a dark place in the ground has access to something. It has access to light. And the light that it has access to cannot be discerned with the eyes. It is discerned with the eye. So it is the enlightenment of the energy from the rays of the sun that you cannot see that infiltrates the ground and enters that dark place that causes the seed to be able to germinate and to produce after its own kind. So to speak purely spiritual, I do believe that we do need some concepts of physicality to try to relate that so that you can see it more clearly. However, before you, and George, you have something to present as well. I want to say this again. I am speaking purely of spiritual protection, of spiritual existence, of spiritual wisdom, of spiritual birth, of spiritual impregnation. That's what I'm speaking of. Right now, I am pregnant. I am pregnant. And I am in my 9th month of pregnancy, and I am in the state of deliverance. And what I have been impregnated with cannot be delivered through a cesarean surgery. It has to be delivered through a natural birth. There are no shortcuts to it, is what I'm trying to say. It is a natural birth. And you are pregnant. Right now, George is sitting there waiting to say something. That means that George is pregnant with what? I don't know. But it's time for you to give birth. So what is it, George?
As we speak of the goddess Mayat, and we're speaking of balance, my question, point of emphasis, talks about
We're missing part of what you're saying, George. We're not getting it all. At least I'm not. Are you guys hearing everything he's saying? No. Okay.
No.
Okay. George, go ahead now. Try now.
when you were speaking of balance, and we're talking about the goddess of Mayat in reference to the principles that were given to humanity, we also have talked about Tahuti, or thought, when it comes to that balance. And so I wanted to just be able to inquire, or as we're expounding upon this, is that I see the balance of Mayat and the master male when it comes to carrying out the teachings that the goddess had given to humanity. And so I see it working together, or I'm seeing it as polarity in a way where it's all oneness, but in terms of the physicality piece, or looking at it in terms of us being able to appreciate that these were principles that were given even before the dynastic kingdoms of Kush and Kemet. I mean, this is how the civilization, or how those principles or spiritual manifestations happen. So again, Pastor, I just wanted to try to make sure that as I understand and search and seek and study, is that I see the two being one, but I was just trying to point out the master teacher's perspective of the book of Tahuti, if that resonates. I'm done.
Yes, it does indeed. The two are one. Audrey, Kathy was speaking. When they were speaking, the questions were seeds. Masculinity has the seed, and the seed is placed in the feminine womb. And the response to the question is the birth, or it is the seed having been germinated to the point where it is able to produce an answer or response. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It is in that regard that I'm talking. And I think, George, that is the same space that you were speaking about in terms of both of them being one at this. They are one at, yet they are different, even though they're one.
Yes. The
And,
wounds.
and that my main emphasis tonight is this: the balance between a Cabelonian femininity and masculinity must be embraced before there can ever be balance available to humanity. That's the main emphasis. Can you see that? Because if there is not balance between the Cabelonian femininity and masculinity, then there is no Elohim. There is no Elohim. Elohim does not exist unless there is unicity between masculinity and femininity. Can you see that?
Yes.
If not, please raise the question.
Within each person.
Yes, yes,
Okay. Yes.
and it's important that you say that, Audrey, within each person, because if it doesn't exist in each person, it will never exist in the many. And it has to exist in the many as well as in that each person. Because that is what that is who is the Lord of the harvest. That is the light for the harvest. That is the enlightenment for the harvest. That is the reason that Elohim is able to see the difference between the wheat, which is the harvest, and the tare, which is the weed that causes you to sleep. And when it talks about bundling the tare and burning it, it's talking about burning means that there is an effort put forth to bring some sense of rightness even to the tare, a purification even to the tare. Because there are times when you are in the midst of people who are staunch, and please take this as I say it, staunch, and I use it loosely, staunch Christians, and there are words that you speak to them, and you're not trying to challenge them, neither are you trying to correct them. You're there speaking the truth without having to quote scriptures or belittle anyone. And it makes sense to them. Then now that tare, that thought has been representative of, now it has come to a state of purification because it has been burned. It has been set ablaze by what? By the light of truth. By the light of truth. And it doesn't matter if we're only able to get just one clear question understood. It's okay. Because if that seed that's embraced, meaning that if that response to that question is embraced, that means that that seed is there and it is in a place where it has the opportunity to germinate. And the germination of that seed means that it can reach a state of maturation. And that one response that you gave, that one person giving that response to someone else is no different than one kernel of corn being planted and is able to feed the community from that one stalk. So that one person that you give it to is able to not only receive that seed, but also to increase that seed exponentially by raising questions within themselves and getting even clearer understanding, not only of the answer of the seed that they received, but also they are beginning to see a broader picture than what they were seeing in that myopic manner. Like even with us, our sight was very myopic in the beginning, and one truth after the other, and the discussions about that. And as we each add what we see to it, then that begins to increase the harvest exponentially, or the understanding exponentially, and the exponential expansion of the truth or of the understanding is what goes into the macro and allows for the lords of the harvest to be able to recognize and to see the yield of the seed that has been planted or that has been sown. And I see that very clearly, but I go right back to the onset of what I'm trying to impress upon us is this: there has to be continuity, there has to be unicity, there has to be cohabitation, there has to be an intertwining of masculinity and femininity of the Cabelonian essence before there will ever be the expression of balance in the earth. Everything is out of balance because the African essence is not balanced. It's not balanced. When the essence of Elohim, when the Cabelonian essence is balanced, that's Elohim. Can you see that? That's Elohim. When the essence of a Cabelonian masculinity and femininity are balanced, that itself is Elohim. Can you see that? That's not rhetorical.
Yes.
Can you see that? Now that the essence of Elohim now that the essence of the African, of the Cabelonian masculinity and femininity are balanced, now that's Elohim. As long as that imbalance escapes us, the essence of function, of being, of experiencing what Elohim is, also escapes us. Regardless of how much we say it with our mouths, that as Audrey raised earlier, within each of us, so that it can be with the many of us. If it's not balanced in me, Elohim, even though I was brought into this earth to be Elohim, I'm not experiencing that because I'm not balanced.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
I was thinking about the wheat and tares overnight. So I did a little research on it. Because
May I
correct
ask
me
a
if I'm
question?
Oh,
May
one
I
second.
ask Audrey? Audrey,
Sorry?
may I ask is it tangential to what Pastor just said? Because I wanted to ask a follow up to what he just said, unless the wheat and tares fit right into that.
Well, it does, it fits in, I think.
Okay, well, There you go. All right. Thank you.
Because when I did a little bit of research and I found out a tare is a weed, but it is a weed that looks very similar to wheat.
Yes.
So,
Mm.
so we have to be careful of what we harvest, right? Because if the tares are mixed in and if they're eaten, they're actually poisonous. So if you're saying then if we are not balanced, then we are not Elohim in terms of reaping that the real harvest.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Okay, so we can reap a harvest, but it might be the poisonous one.
yes,
Okay,
and that has been taking place. The church membership is the
right,
yeah.
right. Religion is a tare. It looks like the wheat,
Yes,
but it's an imposter.
absolutely. And I will speak to that a moment a bit further after Barbara raised that question. Audrey. Okay, Barbara.
Yeah, Audrey ended up with some of the things that we started on yesterday. The fact that that the tares look so much like the wheat that you got to let them go together. But but the end product is the issue, because the tares start falling. That when the fruit is ready, its heads start. But you know what happens on a vine when something is hanging and fruit is ready, the vine starts hanging down, but the tares stand straight up, just like the imposters that they are. It reminded me of the fig tree thing. Has all of these lush leaves, but those leaves are supposed to be figs at a certain point in time. And if the fruit, if it doesn't bear the fruit it's supposed to bear, that kind of lets you know there's something wonky here. But anyway, what I was going to say is the thing that resonated with me, because as you and Kathy and Audrey were talking, was when you talked about the fluidity of the masculine and feminine from a spiritual perspective. And that's the key, because the minute we concretize it, the minute we try to put it in a box, as you said, that's when we begin to put our own boundaries around it. Whether we want to or not, we put it in a box, that already sets the boundary. So it's the fluidity. Just like the ocean, it flows. It knows when it's going to crest, and it goes back, and it just flows. It does what it's supposed to do. Well, from the masculine and the feminine perspective, it does the same thing. When it's balanced, when the masculine energy is pulled off to a certain thing, well, what flows is the feminine energy flows and takes that place if space is left. And same thing happens if the feminine energy is pulled to a certain place, the masculine energy flows to where it needs to be supportive of. And so when we put them in boxes, it's hard to move those things in your mind when we put a label around them. And when we say this is your role, that's not your role. When you put a role around it, it's hard for us to break that, break down the barrier around what we've already buried within this role. But if we continue to think, as you said, the fluidity of spiritual things, it just flows where it needs to go. It flows to do what it needs to do, and it flows to be what it needs to be, both feminine and masculine. Flow to be what it is when it's needed, how it's needed, where it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you. The idea of the poison weeds, Audrey, that you brought up, when it talks about we're being in the wilderness and drawing something out, it talks about the water having been poisoned. And the Creator says to Moses, he is to put a stick in the water, and the water is sweetened and is no longer poison. What is that saying? Even though the tear is poison, even though that staunch Christian is poison to the truth, it's poison, but it is the opportunity for it to be sweetened. There is the opportunity for it to be brought into the fold if it chooses to. So the tear is only poisonous to the extent that it chooses to be poison. Does that make sense? It has the affinity or the opportunity to be sweetened. Why? Because Elohim can sweeten anything that's poisonous.
So that's the purification.
Purification.
Okay.
See, fluidity takes place when we stop trying to make it take place. When we sit with something that's driving us up the wall and we're able to move through it without judging it or without saying, I expected this to happen, or, oh my God, I know this is going to happen because blah, 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 blah. Fluidity doesn't take place during that period of time because we are stifling it. We're not allowing anything to flow through us when we are in a state of complaining or in a state where we are stating the negative or the opposite of the positivity that our expectations have. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
So this whole idea of fluidity is when we stop trying to make it happen and just be. Just be. You can't say that I'm going to apply for this job, but I know they're not going to hire me because I'm black. Well, you're right. They're not going to hire you because you're black. Why? Because that's your expectation. Is it not? So we have to change those kinds of expressions and thoughts that we have, stop them in their tracks and transpose them into what they should be. I think George had a question, Ron.
Who did, Pastor?
I think George had a question.
No, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to read the explanation and the definition of balance as far as the principle in Mayat, and I think this will hopefully connect to what's being said. It says that balance is a state in which the internal and external environments of an individual or group are aligned with the goddess, Mother Nature, one another, and the rest of creation. And I think that explanation, is one that basically put where opposites can come together and meet, and where like new life is generated or new possibilities come into being. So that balance is important, when you're talking about the individual and also of the group, being in one accord, being in alignment, with the cosmic mother or the goddess, the creator, Mother Nature. So I just wanted to read that.
Thank you.
Mission.
George, read that first part again, please.
It says a state in which the internal, and external environments of an individual or group are aligned with the goddess, Mother Nature, one another, and the rest of creation.
I'll stop right there. It's when there is an alignment between when the one, yet many, are aligned with the Creator. That's what balance is. Is that not what it's saying?
Yes.
So when we are aligned with the Creator, how are we aligned? And that is embracing the unicity of masculinity and femininity. Because that's what brought all of us into existence, is it not? From the womb of the cosmic mother.
Can I read
Pastor,
something?
one,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Pastor, one of the things you've taught several times. You use this example when the man and the woman in a relationship make a decision to do something, and they're on one accord. Anything is possible. Well, that's a physical reflection of the spiritual essence of what you're talking about as it relates to the feminine and the masculine aspect that makes up Elohim.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see that. Absolutely. Thank you. I see that.
I want to share something with you from spirituality before religion. I thought about this when Barb was talking about the fluidity of masculinity and femininity working together. This says magnetism creates electricity, and electricity creates magnetism. Electricity lives for magnetism, and magnetism lives for electricity. The universe was a place filled with more or less uniform hydrogen plasma, free, unorganized, and unarranged Mills and Yang fields containing electrons, protons, and neutrons. It is reasonable to imagine that this plasma had the potential for motion and energy. These electrical currents and magnetic field exist at rest in this plasma. And it goes on to talk about it, but I just want to talk about the relationship between electricity, electricity and magnetism. One creates the other, and they work in harmony, and they create, working together, the force that they become. But aside from each other, not only is there no balance, there is no motion. The motion comes when they work together. Does that make sense?
Ron,
Yeah. Yes, the order of motion. Yeah.
yes. And I was just going to say, Ron, when you speak about the atomic consciousness, you're talking about new life is what is generated. And you're talking about new possibilities now coming to being. And so we are speaking this into the cosmos, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the manifestation is manifesting because of our desire. And
Yes.
so, again, I spiritually, I'm feeling it, and I think that's the joy and the excitement of the spiritual awakenings that we are having right now. When we
What, George?
cosmic enrapture. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pastor.
Nothing new can possibly be birthed by chaos. Think about that. Nothing new can be birthed by chaos. Chaos cannot bring life into existence. Chaos only breeds itself chaos. The same chaos that was in effect when Europeans went into Okabulon the first time is the same chaos that was in effect when Columbus encountered the indigenous people in the Americas, in South America, in the islands. The same chaos existed at the foundation of this country. The same chaos exists today. It is no different. There is nothing different in chaos. It produces absolutely nothing. It produces nothing that is beneficial to anyone. Only order, only the principles that you two guys were talking about earlier with the idea of energy and electricity and magnetism. Chaos cannot produce anything. It can only continue to move as we move it. Elohim does not move chaos. When we act as mere humans, we are the movers of chaos. We are the perpetuators of the same chaos over and over. And we say history repeats itself. Chaos doesn't change. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Chaos doesn't change. And the only time that chaos is overcome, the only time that chaos is disallowed to continue to be poisonous to humanity is when Elohim stops it. And Elohim cannot stop it if Elohim only sees itself as a mere human. Elohim cannot stop it if Elohim sees itself as a man or a woman, as opposed to masculine/feminine. Does that make sense? We are at a precipice now. In the midst of the chaos that's around us, we don't need that chaos to create. We are creators. The only reason that chaos could be perpetuated is because it was infused with our energy. It's not only that the monument was the antenna for it all that we talked about, but guess what else? When we sought to fulfill our ambitions in this society, we were talking about the ambitions that European minds gave us. And we were fueling the chaos because we were seeking to be what we were told we were supposed to be: wealthy, shakers and movers. We were the ones who was feeding the chaos. We were the life of the chaos. And the chaos cannot exist when you know who you are. Why? Chaos cannot exist in the presence of Elohim. It cannot. Confusion falls apart in the midst of truth. There is no Christianity that can stand the light of truth. There is no religion on the face of the earth that can stand the light of truth. We were the ones who were feeding it. And look at how it's shattering now. Why? Because those who finally came to an understanding and embraced who they are took the life from it and made a decision. No more. No more. Would everyone make sure your phones are muted, please? No more is what we say. And as a result of us saying no more, guess what? We had no more issues with it, did we? Why? Right now, when you go into a religious setting, what do you see? You see the same thing you saw when you left, do you not? Are you comfortable there? Why are you not comfortable there? And I'm not talking about socialization of it. I'm talking about the way that we once, quote unquote, worshiped. It's not there anymore because we have refused to embrace or to infuse life into chaos. That's the difference. I'm done, unless there are questions or comments.
I would like to add something else as well to what Ron said about magnetism and electricity. That one has, I believe that the feminine principle is represented by magnetism and the masculine principle by electricity, and that one requires the other and the other requires the other opposite. But apart, everything is just potential. The movement occurs when those two interact. That's when the movement occurs. And as you said, that movement, absent our knowing who we are, that movement can create chaos. But when we know who we are, it's that movement, one requiring the other and vice versa, that provides the energy to make that potential become something more than just potential. And so when we know who we are, that's why we're seeing some of the manifestations now. I once said, I might not ever see this, but now my expectation is my expectation is that if I'm aligned with universal principles and with you all, with Elohim as Elohim, if I'm aligned, I fully expect to see the results. And I couldn't say that at one point in time. All I could say is I don't know when, and I still don't know necessarily when. But I used to preface it with, it may not happen in my life. I fully expect things to happen in my lifetime. And it's happening. And so it's just increased the extent of my view of the power that Elohim is. Thank you.
Listen to what you said, Bob. If I'm aligned and you are aligned, meaning that when the one is aligned and the many are aligned also, yes, I will see it in my lifetime. The key to it is you being aligned, and when you are aligned, that means the many are also aligned.
Yeah.
We are the many and the one. Thank you, guys.
We're also the win.
Yes, we are. Because the win is predicated on us recognizing the necessity of the unicity between masculinity and femininity and overcoming what has been done to cause us in our mindset to see a separation between the two.
And that's why the due season is right now. It's not tomorrow. It's not when heaven comes and all that stuff. The due season, that's why my mindset has changed. I fully expect manifestation. That's the due season. The due season is not some goal out there. It is the alignment and acting on that alignment with the full expectation of seeing manifestation. That's now.
And Elohim reaps the harvest.
Yes,
right.
The Lord of the harvest. You that has gone away from you. I might not. That has left you, which means that it is in front of you. And the reality is what is called the future, but there is no future. It is the now.
Yeah.
Because Elohim does not live in the future. Humans live in the past, the future. Elohim lives in the present. Now I think I'm done.
Well, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, honor to the ancestors. So is that why the labors are few? Because if I'm balanced, then everyone else will be balanced.
No. Because you balance,
So
everyone has had the opportunity to be balanced. When we talk about one yet many, when I'm talking about balance, I'm talking about the ones who we are speaking with every single week. If nobody is balanced, we should be the many that's balanced. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about those who sit at St. Peter's Cathedral or at a Bethel Church or a Bethlehem or Cathedral. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those who are recipients of truth, the 108 people that subscribe to our channel. I'm saying that they have the opportunity to be balanced, and they are the many. I'm not talking about people that I'm not aware of. Am I saying they are not? No, I'm not. But I am saying the ones that we speak to is the many that must be. Does that make sense, Evelyn?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. And I've said this to you before. If the teachers, if the 12 plus me, if we cannot be balanced, we cannot have an expectation for anyone else to be balanced, because we must be what we teach, not just live what you teach. We are what we teach, because if we are not what we teach, we're teaching nothing. Does that make sense, Evelyn?
I got that part, what you just said, that part.
That's all you need. If we're not what we're teaching nothing. Because if you're not what you're teaching, you don't believe what you're teaching.
I hear you.
So, Ray, this is Charles. That's why you say the blind is teaching the blind.
The blind leads the blind. Yes, that's what we're talking about. When you don't know who you are, the blind is leading the blind. Yes. And when I say, let me clarify this, Charles. When I say that if you're not what you're teaching, you don't believe what you're teaching. This is what I'm saying. If you are teaching and you can walk away from what you are teaching, and there are no efforts for you to be what you are teaching nothing. I am not saying that you don't struggle, that you don't make every effort to be it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you teach it, if you believe it, you walk in it. You do everything you can to walk in it. That's what I'm saying. Is that
clear? I understand. I understand.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. And I don't know as far as this human, the aspects of us, of this physical, I shouldn't say human because we're not that, because of the physicality of our essence in this earth. I don't know of other people who do what we do. I don't. So I have to deal with those who I know who are doing what we do. And I am saying we are the many. If but one will you save the city. That's how I live my life. If it were one, if you would save the city for one, how much more are you apt to save the city if there are many?
Yeah.
That's where I am. And with that, I am truly done.
Well, I want to make sure Evelyn's clear, Pastor, because if she's not, maybe somebody else is not either. Is there something else needs to be readdressed, Evelyn? You okay?
No. I got what he said, Pastor Jay. I got what you said. And we talked about this for the past 2 days about the labors of few. The teachers did an excellent job. But when you brought this tonight to us, you put it out there, I started thinking about things and as the scripture said, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now because of what you said tonight.
Wow. How is that was taught the last 2 days bringing misunderstanding for tonight, based on tonight?
It's not I got what they said, but it's kind of hard to put in words. It's when teachers teach, they do a very good job. But when you come, it's like you open up another layer of what they taught. And again, they did a very good job. You left us in good care with them. Kathy, Barbara, Audrey, not Richard, but Ron, all of them did a very good job. But I'm just saying, I just have some questions about the few.
Okay. When it says
That's what I'm talking about.
when it says that the laborers are few, I concur with that 100% because the laborers are few. The laborers are Elohim. And there are not many people who embrace the reality that they are Elohim. The laborers are few. So those who do embrace themselves as Elohim, they are enough laborers to do the harvest. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I got that now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All I-
One yet many, but yeah, I got it. Two.
All I was saying tonight in regards to that was, in order for the laborers to experience balance for humanity, the laborers must be assured that they are one with masculinity and femininity. There is no separation there. That mindset of male and female being separated must be altered. The competition between the African woman and African man must be altered. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm
And
saying.
everyone has an opportunity to be open and receive what Elohim is putting out there in the universe.
There are two things in regards to that. Number one, everyone has opportunity to embrace what Elohim is teaching, and we are Elohim. Okay. The other thing is that Elohim, who is doing the teaching, are the essence of the African in this earth. Are you with that?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
We are not humans. No matter how hard we try to be that, we are not humans. I don't even think that, what's the guy named Lamar? Well, at the Super Bowl, dude,
Kendrick Lamar.
Lamar. I do not think Kendrick Lamar knew the essence of what he was saying when he said they're not like us. I don't think that. It resonated deeply. I know it did with me because I saw that not as somebody being dehumanized, not as somebody being inferior, but I saw that as saying everyone is not Elohim. That's what I saw that as saying. We are Elohim. That's the essence of our being. And I don't think we can ever state that too often. We are Elohim. And the whole message of Christianity is to convince us that we are not God. That's the whole essence of Christianity, to teach us that we are not God. And we know the origins of the Christianity that we are taught are the very ones who are white supremacists, who believe that that Europeans are superior because they know who we are. The key is convincing us so we don't know who we are. Amen, Jane Richard.
Ashe.
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 Thank you, Audrey.
Ashe.
I just say, don't say amen, Jane Richard, say Ashe.
I'll take either.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or questions, guys? Remember, we will not meet next weekend, okay?
Okay. You're right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All righty.
Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
Care family.
You guys have a great week,
All right.
okay?
See you.
Thanks, everyone.
And a
Take
good
care.
holiday.
Thank you.
Enjoy your
Bye.
holiday.
See you later.
Yep.
Yeah.
Enjoy your
Bye-bye.
Thanksgiving.